Now, we all know the facts of this case. The defendant decided that he was above the law and paid his employee a rate below the legal minimum wage. But this case is about something bigger: income inequality.
Why is it that some people are so rich and some people are so poor? That's actually not a new question. Adam Smith raised it hundreds of years ago, and we still see a world where people are poor. And so we have questions that need to be addressed about what are the appropriate policies for alleviating poverty and whether poverty and income inequality are really related.
Well, we do have standards, and we do enforce those standards as part of the social framework in which the employment contract takes place. I think the way to think about that as a legal matter is that all contracts are acts of law. They are governed by law, and they're only valid to the extent that they comply with the law.
Bring it, Sam.
Careful, Will. I've got the law on my side.
Oh, well, we've got
Economics.
economics.
In a society where we see so many people talking about income inequality, can we, by, say, raising minimum wages, eliminate the gap between the rich and the poor? We can only know that when we apply good, solid economic thinking to these questions. In the film, we see Tommy. He is one of the people that would be benefited by this minimum wage law, which is, again, an attempt to raise wages to help people who have less skills and potentially less education, not as many opportunities or experience. And I think Tommy is reflective of the type of people that are paid the minimum wage and that experience the effects of the minimum wage.
Wages are the price of labor. So the way that economists describe wages is it results from how productive the worker is and the price of the output that the person is making. So an economist would say if you raise the price of something, people are going to use less of it.
And so when we raise the minimum wage, we have to look at the impacts on people like Tommy. Is it going to help him both increase his income? But that's not the only thing we're concerned about. We're really concerned about Tommy and his peers getting opportunities. We want them to get their foot on the economic ladder and be able to climb up the ladder.
I have to ask you, why didn't you pay your employee the minimum wage?
I was trying to. It's complicated.
So over the short run, raising the minimum wage by the amount that we've done it in the past doesn't appear to have much of an employment effect. But there's two other effects that are much harder to measure. One of those is the delay, or in some cases substitution away from, hiring people who have no experience. So the paradox always is you can't be hired without experience, and you can't get experience without being hired.
And so what we see in the American economy is that teenagers that have fewer skills, less levels of education, and just less experience because they're younger, they tend to be disproportionately impacted and paid the minimum wage. And so the question is, does the minimum wage help? But certainly Tommy is one of the kind of characteristic people that we would see receiving the minimum wage.
The price that we pay for the minimum wage is mostly going to fall on the poor. Poor people who go to places where people work for minimum wage pay a higher price. And some economists have estimated that more than all the benefits of the wage increase from the minimum wage will be lost because of price increases that those same poor people have to pay. The minimum wage is connected to the debate over inequality partly because we feel that workers are being exploited by large concentrated corporations.
You've all heard of the 1%, but they don't all look like billionaire tycoons.
What we're talking about here is the structure of money wages, the differential between the bottom and the top, what my profession as a professor makes compared to a doctor, a lawyer, a construction worker. There are many different factors that play into these things.
There are 1,000 variables that go into the distribution of wealth in our society, from people's skill sets to their circumstances in life. You are asking us to defend the outcomes of the entire U.S. economy.
We tend to think of the minimum wage, and when I say we, I mean the way we talk about it in society. We think that the minimum wage is maybe acceptable or reasonable or fair because we're going to take money from very rich CEOs on the top of the Forbes list, and we're going to ask them to give up a little bit of their earnings and give it to people who have less skill.
This has become a country whose politics have become oriented toward a very small number of very wealthy people rather than a much larger mass base, and that's been true in both parties. And I think that's the primary reason why inequality has taken on this highly charged political dimension.
Income inequality is the defining issue of our time. So right here, right now, all of us are going to do something about it.
The reason that people are concerned about economic inequality is that it seems like some people who are rewarded are not really doing anything that's morally significantly better than the people who are not rewarded. And the state should step in to try to correct these unjust differences. When we think in terms of abstractions, it's the very poorest workers will receive more from the very wealthiest groups in the United States, and so it satisfies a kind of sense of justice.
But what we see is that the store owner in the video is exactly the type of person that is paying minimum wage. Think of someone who starts a business, whether it's a hardware store or a food truck or an accounting business out of their home. That's how most businesses start. And what we want in a society where people can thrive, where people can have a lot of opportunities to grow their skills, is these jobs available to them. And what we see in the film is that the minimum wage restricts this small business owner from being able to hire the people that he needs to help run his business.